You know, it's bad enough that there's one bad Ghostbusters game out there, but would you believe that there's another one? Ghostbusters 2.
There's something strange in your neighborhood.
I mean, really? Did the developers not realize how atrocious the last game was? Are they intentionally trying to f*** up the Ghostbusters name? Were they actually so proud of the first game that they decided to make a sequel out of it? I want answers, damn it! How can you look at it and even consider producing a follow-up? Well, apparently they did, and like the greedy sons of bitches that they are, they base it on the second movie. Which is already an issue because that's considered inferior to the first movie. I can already imagine this is gonna suck. Well, let's get this sadistic journey out of the way. So the game starts with a cutscene that basically tells us that the Ghostbusters are back after 5 years because there's a new threat in New York. A ghostly painting! Ah! This handsome, charming fellow is Vigo, a 17th century magician who wants to get out of the painting and cause havoc in the city. The first level of the game takes place in the sewers where the Ghostbusters investigate the slime. Where the first game had a lot of driving and shortcoming ghost catching sequences, here it's a good old side-scroller, with incredibly awkward aiming controls. You have to adjust the altitude of the proton beam that shoots out slime for some reason, if you want to hit anything that comes in your way. There are ghosts you can shoot at, but when you get to some of the bigger ghosts, that's where you have to lay out a ghost trap to suck them in. The ghosts themselves aren't that much of a problem, but these obstacles are relentless. There are more of them than there are ghosts to catch, and they can be irritating to avoid. I especially cannot stand the ones that crawl along the floor, because they come at you so quickly that you have barely any time to react. And then there are these things swooping up and down where you have to move at precisely the right moment, otherwise it'll hit you. And yes, there are one-hit deaths, as well as having 3 lives and 3 continues. Well, somebody was inspired by Contra. Is there a code that can give you 30 lives instead of 3? Well, if you manage to shoot at 20 of these Ghostbusters logos, then you get an extra life. But if this game is trying to be similar to Contra, couldn't they have at least made A to jump and B to shoot like pretty much every other shooter on the NES? Instead, it's the other way around. But while it does feel weird at first, I don't think it should take too long to get used to. Anyway, there are only 8 levels in this game, which doesn't sound like much, but if they're trying to make this game as long as possible, couldn't they have not made them so unfairly hard to beat? The only way you can possibly win this game is if you memorize every single level of the game. So the second level is the driving section, which is a little better than it was in the first game, but not by much. Like when you're on foot, you can only take 1 hit. But here it's even worse, because usually when you die you start from where you left off. But if you fall down a pit while trying to make those really stiff jumps, you have to start the level all over again, redoing those difficult moments that you just spent one of your lives on. I don't know how, but apparently the car can shoot slime too, except only in 2 simultaneous directions. I suppose the only real issue I have with the slime projectiles is that they travel just a little slowly. But in this game's defense, you can get a power-up to make it go a little faster, but Jesus Christ, do I hate those jumps! The ghosts as well could be a pain in the ass because they can shoot projectiles too. Somehow. Not so much these incredibly stock-looking ghosts, but these slimers because they move so freaking fast. Level 3 is the museum, and nothing's really different here except for a change of sprite, so moving on to level 4, where it's another driving section and you're constantly sweating buckets at those moments where you have to make 2 jumps in a row. Level 5, you're in the subway. Level 6 and 7, you're controlling the Statue of Liberty, which I would probably have some fun with if I were to be doing this with the NES Advantage, like in the movie, but unfortunately I don't have one. I suspect even if I did, though, I would get sick of it pretty quickly, because god damn, these levels just go on and on! The basic goal is to survive an onslaught of dancing ghosts, which kinda remind me of the aliens from Galaga, and to do that you have to shoot mint-flavored ice cream at them. You can also nuke the entire screen with a deadly Declaration of Independence, but this especially helps when you have to deal with those annoying ghosts that you can't see. Ironic, I know. One power-up you absolutely need to get is the torch, which allows you to shoot in 3 directions rather than 1, and it is a godsend. However, if you get hit, then you lose it. Oh yeah, and you actually have a life bar this time, but if the ghosts come swooping down at you in a group, then it doesn't matter. Invincibility frames? What are those? But if they're perfectly capable of programming a life bar to Lady Liberty, then why couldn't we have had that for the Ghostbusters and the Ecto 1 as well? I hate this freaking game.
God damn it, I hate using this thing!
Alright, I don't want to cheat too much, so let's just stick with having unlimited continues. So after those two overly long and tedious sections, we move on to the final level where you head towards Vigo and saturate him with a slime. But this has got to be one of the most frustrating levels I have ever played. You see, instead of moving on to the next part as soon as you get to the end, you have to go through the same level 4 times to get all the Ghostbusters in. Yeah, you can actually play as all 4 Ghostbusters this time, including Winston, who wasn't present in the first game. But I probably wouldn't mind replaying the level so much if each of them didn't have their own hazard placements. And you would maybe think that after you get one of the Ghostbusters through, then that would make some sort of checkpoint. But no! If you lose all of your lives and choose to continue, then you have to get each of the Ghostbusters through all over again. Cut me a break! This is pretty much just one big endurance round that I can't seem to f***ing do! Ah! There even eventually came a time where I added another code that gave me 9 lives for each continue, but I still can't freaking beat this! The best I can do is get to the last Ghostbuster, but good god, how many obstacles does this game want to throw at me? And if you just want to maybe take a break to get your energy back, well, good luck figuring out a way to pause the game, because there isn't one. Now you might be thinking, oh well, I can just stand around here then. Well, there are 2 problems with that. For one, if you decide to take a break at the start of the level, then this little spider will kill you. You figure that one out. But even if that wasn't there, you'd still have to deal with a time limit. So you basically can't have any breaks while playing the game, unless you use save states on an emulator.
I've been playing this same part for about 2 hours now, so I'm sorry, but I give up. The ending, as you suspect, really isn't that spectacular, because it's just basically the Ghostbusters all shooting slime at Vigo, and he just sort of folds down. Afterwards, there's a newspaper article like, yay, New York City is saved, even though there's crime practically there every day, so the city's never actually that safe. But all in all, the game flat out sucks.
I mean, what else is there to say about it? The graphics are atrocious, the music, while more varied than the other games, still has a few songs to listen to, aside from the constantly looping Ghostbusters theme song. The controls are terrible and stiff, and relies way too much on trial and error. Now, other games do have their fair share of this, particularly Castlevania, and hell, even Zelda uses it a few times. But these games tend to either have better level design, more enemies to fight, as well as having different types, or maybe I just find going after a vampire and a giant pig more interesting than going after a still painting. But Ghostbusters 2 doesn't have any of that. With that said though, I will say it is slightly better than the first game, and I mean very slightly. I'll give Ghostbusters 2 for the NES a 1 out of 10, standing for not only angers video gamers, but fanboys as well. By the way, if you can actually find someone to play with you, there is an option for 2 players. But you basically take turns in completing the levels, and it switches between players whether you die or finish a level.
Well, thankfully, when we next meet, there's going to be a new marathon that I haven't done in over a year now. I'm going to let you guys figure out which series I'm going to be doing, using some pictures and a bit of music. Who carries 2 pistols, goes around the world to scavenge ancient ruins, and is often compared to Indiana Jones. I'm Josh Smith from Reviews of Yesteryear, and I will see you guys next time.
I ain't afraid of no